Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to be going through attackers and glyphing attackers. It's one that I've been asked for a lot, so I thought I'd finally get around to making it. And we're going to cover AoE and single target attackers, the type of glyphs for PvE and PvP, and we'll even go into a bit of the speed scaling and the differences whether you want speed or attack for speed scaling attackers. So first off, we're just on my dragon here. He's one of my main attackers that I use. And most of my attackers will be the same. I don't like them being super slow, so most of them I will put one speed glyph on. Also, just for arena, you don't want to be too slow that you don't get boosted far enough by your, well, for me, it's my Earthsea lot. So the speed really helps. So if you can get a good speed glyph with some good substats, it helps. For attackers, later game, you're going to be wanting to use more, I think, probably strength, frenzy, and destruction glyphs. But for me, I'm still hanging on to that hope of getting some faster haste sets. So I only farm Wrath at the moment, which pretty much leaves me with haste and lifesteal as my two options. And the great thing about, well, haste is never bad, speed never hurts, but for your attackers, I definitely think Frenzy's better just to get that crit rate up, and then obviously destroy for more crit damage. But like I said, haste, the speed's not bad, and if you're going to use your attackers for farming or for dungeon runs, lifesteal is fantastic because it just allows your monsters that self regeneration. And because they're normally going to be a bit squishier, they'll get more healing out of it. So they'll do large amounts of damage and pretty much top themselves off. So lifesteal is almost a must for me for my attackers in PvE because I'm doing more. The only healers that I'm normally bringing into my PvE teams is the Earthsea lot, and it's not that much healing. So the lifesteal is fantastic for them. But yeah, I'll normally go with the one speed and one attack. Obviously percent or flat depending on the base attack of the unit. But then the middle two, normally I'll do one crit rate, one crit damage. So when I glyph my monsters, my attackers, I try and aim for about 75-80% crit rate plus, especially for the AoE attackers because in arena, if you crit 3 of the enemies and they die and there's one left, then you've only got one to deal with. So it's not as important to have 100% crit. Even, I know some people think I'm crazy with my Fire Dragon because if he crits, he has a 65% chance of recovering the turn, so you don't want to miss a crit. But because I use him as an arena nuker, normally he's always going to crit one of the four enemies. The chance of him not critting one of the 4 enemies is very unlikely, so that doesn't bother me, and if he gets one extra turn, that's normally enough for me in arena, so I'm not too stressed about getting him to 100% crit. Obviously it would be nice, but not the end of the world. Same when I use him in dungeon runs, 93% crit for him is just fine for me. And then obviously the bottom 2 glyphs, we look for attack percent on both of them for him. And then the substats you're looking for are obviously your attack, flat or percent, they both add into it. Your crit rate, your crit damage, and your speed. So those are the main substats that you want to look for in those glyphs. My dragon has got very, very decent glyphs. I'm pretty happy with his at the moment. Obviously, if these were, say, 2 destruction sets, he'd do a lot more damage. But like I said, I farm Wrath, so that's all I've got at the moment. Moving on to another one, Wind Samurai, he is very similar. So I have actually got him on the Strength Frenzy set. Those are some shop glyphs that I had. And you'll see he's very, very similar. He's speed, attack, crit rate, crit damage, and then attack. Oh, he's actually on the defense glyph at the moment because I didn't have a good frenzy one, and that's what I used for him in dungeons, just because he doesn't have that lifesteal, so I needed that extra bit of tankiness. So that's the thing with your attackers. If you are using them in dungeons and you don't have lifesteal, sometimes even if you do have lifesteal, you might have to consider putting a defense glyph or a HP glyph on them just to help them survive, because they are very frail, and the key to using these guys in dungeons is to have really good support units to help them get through it, basically. The next one I want to look at is the most recent unit I did a video on, and that is going to be the Wind Harpy. And so she is a speed scaling AoE damage dealer. And for speed scaling attackers, most of them have a multiplier of they get their speed times 10 as extra damage in their multiplier. And the thing is, if you're using it as a pure arena nuker, it's actually better to put an attack glyph on one of these top ones, because you get more damage out of the speed scaling skill from attack than you do from speed. Basically, because because on the top glyph you can only get attack percent, you can't get attack flat, and that's 49%, which is basically, we'll say it's 50%. So 50% of anything, I think her base attack's like 1,000 or something like that. So 50% of the 1,000 is 500, so it's gaining 500 in the multiplier. Whereas speed times 10, speed being 27, you're only getting 270 as the multiplier. So you're getting sort of double the value out of an attack glyph than a speed glyph. However, speed scaling is still awesome because it is just bonus damage from your speed. So it's not a bad thing. But when I'm using her if I'm using a speed scaler for PvE, dungeons, or farming, then I definitely always go the double speed, because you're taking more turns, you're getting around to using your attacks more often, and it isn't that much damage that you're losing. So, but in the same fashion, then I go for crit damage, crit rate, and then attack. Obviously, you look at what stats, whether you need flat or percent. She prefers flat. I do have a percent on her just because it had better substats than the leftover glyphs that I had of flat attack. So that's that one. So yeah, speed scaling, it's better to damage if it's an arena nuker. If you're looking at something like the Wind Rakshasa as a nuker, I think he's pretty much the same, where he'd prefer attack. But obviously the speed always helps. And like I said, I always like to have a bit of speed, so I'm normally going to put one speed glyph on at least. And then when we move into the single target attackers, I've only really got 2 built. One doesn't really count because the other one is the Fire Succubus, and I've actually got her on a bit of a cheeky tanky build for arena. But the Wind Ninja, I've done my video on him, but he is one that I aim for the 100% crit. If crit is basically, if critting is going to make them do what they need to do, then I'd say it's very important to aim for that 100% crit. Another one that I just wanted to show quickly that is in this same sort of idea is this Earth Succubus. She decreases the defense of the enemy for 1 turn, then attacks them, and if it's critical, steals up to 100% of their turn bar. So it's similar to the Wind Ninja, where if she crits, she steals 100% attack bar. So that's not like the Wind Ninja where he just gets a turn. She is stealing the turn, putting them to 0, putting her back up to full, and giving another turn. And that is a very important effect. So for something like her, I'd really aim for 100% crit. Obviously, she has damage scaling on her crit damage, and so it'd be handy to have that crit damage. But I still think that 100% crit is one of the most important things for her. And as I was on the Wind Ninja, because it basically, if they're gonna do pretty much nothing if they don't crit, then that's when you want to aim for 100% crit. And then obviously the stats are the same. This guy, same thing. If I was using him in arena, I'd probably put him on 1 attack glyph up here, because he's also got such a really high base attack. But because I'm using him more for my Wrath 10 runs, I've got him on double speed, so he takes more turns and keeps using his armor break and stuff like that. But then yeah, obviously I've gone for the double crit percent. If I had better substats, I might be able to do it with the crit damage, but this is just what I had, and that's basically how it worked. And then obviously the attack down the bottom, and then you're looking for the same substats: attack percent, attack flat, crit rate, crit damage, and speed. But yeah, that's pretty much the main part. The other thing to consider when building an attacker is something that I'll have to consider when I start building this guy, the Water Dragon, is he has some really good secondary effects tied into his nukes. And so he's got the armor break. He's also got the attack bar depletion with a freeze. So accuracy is something you want to look for. Luckily for this guy, he evolves into accuracy, so he's a base 50%. But with those guys, and in my situation where I'm farming Wrath, and that's pretty much all I'm farming, the precision set is an awesome one for that. It's just good value. So I could do this guy on precision haste or even double precision, anything like that. Once again, looking for those, he'd be speed attack, crit rate, crit damage, attack, and that's the sort of build. But yeah, that precision set's really handy if you have an attacker that really has that negative effects it wants to land. Another one would be like the Water Shogun, very similar vein to this guy. Has the freeze, or is it a paralyze? I think it is, and he has the attack bar reduction. So it's sort of the secondary effects. Yes, they're there to do the damage, but if you land those secondary effects, it's really going to benefit your team. So that's the other thing to consider when you're looking at your attackers. But that's about, I don't think I missed anything about attackers, but that's pretty much all that I have for glyphing attackers. So I hope this helped you guys a little bit. Early game, that's the one other thing I wanted to mention. Early game is that you might need a bit more defense and HP. Early game is very hard to use attackers just because obviously your stats are low, your glyphs aren't that great, it's hard to get the high crit. But yeah, moving later game is when you mainly want to focus on the attackers, unless you're using an attacker early game as a farmer on lifesteal. So like I said, hope it helped, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Cheers.